This video is sponsored by Noragon, the commercial vehicle data experts. Visit noragon.com to learn more.
When it comes to new technology, there's no substitute for actual experience. If you're interested in using it, you probably want to hear from someone who already has. Someone had to be the first person to turn on that light bulb, to plug something into the first electrical outlet, before the rest of us could be assured that it works. Luckily, the number of fleets using electric commercial vehicles is growing seemingly every day. EVs aren't right for every fleet, but hearing a story of a fleet similar to yours and how they're using them is likely the best case study an interested fleet could ask for. So with that in mind, for today's episode of On the Road, I sat down with Chris Russo, CEO of Elite Home Care. They run a fleet of commercial vans, and they've converted them all to electric Ford e-Transit models. I asked Chris about the details of his business, how they use the vehicles, and their experience with electrification so far. Let's go to the interview. Well, I wanted to get started if you could just kind of walk me through your business from a vehicle standpoint. You know, how many you have, what you use them for, and basically your experience so far.
Sure. So our business is helping people that either old or are able to be able to take care of themselves. So it's 3 service lines. So we have a home health care piece, we have an adult day care center piece, and a transportation piece. The transportation piece is where obviously we utilize these vehicles. It started out with a mode of transportation to bring people from their homes to our day centers. But once people were there in the mornings, and once we take them home in the afternoon, we would have a lot of time in the middle of the day that the vehicles weren't being used. So we tried to find an opportunity where we could utilize these assets to help others in the community. So today, we pick people up, take them to our centers, we bring them home in the afternoon, but during the day, we utilize the vehicles to bring people to doctor's appointments, dialysis, pharmacies, anything else they might need. Typically, these routes are standard, same kind of area every day. So it's really pre-planned. And so electric vehicles for us made a lot of sense because we knew exactly how far these vehicles were going to go every day. We knew they were going to come back at night. They were going to sit through the night, and then they'd go back out in the morning. So for us, they make a lot of sense.
Okay, yeah, and you mentioned the electric vehicles. Can you let me know which vehicles you're using and how many?
Sure. So our entire fleet is 125 electric vehicles. We started purchasing them. We first met with Ford as they were bringing electric vehicles out into the marketplace. At the end of 2021, we started actually receiving them in 2022. These were e-Transits that needed to be upfitted with wheelchair lifts and additional seating. So we were one of the first companies to really start utilizing them to move people, and specifically, people that needed additional assistance to make these vehicles ADA compliant. It took time to cycle out all of our gas and diesel vehicles, but today we're exclusively 100% electric. Out of those 125 vehicles, in an average month, we do just shy of 20,000 trips, which is kind of amazing. These aren't just a passenger vehicle; they're a piece of equipment for us. That's a lot of mileage, a lot of wear and tear, and for us, it's been great.
Yeah, and that's an important part of it that you mentioned, the charging, because, when we talk to fleets, because electric vehicles are so new, there's a lot of steps you have to go through before you can start using them. It's not as simple as, you get a new truck or a new van and then you start running it. You have to have your charging set up. You have to make sure that you know how everything's going to work with that. So
I really can't take much of the credit for that. So when we first met with Ford, obviously I had never even driven an electric vehicle before, but it made sense to me on paper. So they connected us actually with installers. They provided the equipment to us. It was really turnkey. It wasn't just going and buying a vehicle. It was a contact every step of the way. We would not have been as successful if we didn't have someone helping us along the way. So that was a big benefit.
Yeah, and that's an important thing for fleets to keep in mind too, is that the OEMs know that this is new, and they know that they need to kind of offer these helping hands as you get started, and all of them, as far as I'm aware, do that.
Yeah, we've had discussions with with all the manufacturers. For us, it's just been helpful to have a team support to help both with the product side as well as the infrastructure side and really the financing side. So, all together they kind of worked as a team for us. We just came out of some devastating hurricanes in the Southeast. We weren't sure how this would work with electric vehicles. People rely on us to provide that transportation, life-saving transportation. When the hurricanes came through, we did lose power overnight. The chargers notified us. We were able to make plans to either move vehicles to a site that did have electricity, or they were already charged at that point in time. And we were able to still operate. While it's not funny and I'm not happy about it, fuel pumps were out. So anybody that was using a gas vehicle couldn't get fuel. And when fuel was available, there were lines for hours, if not a day, to get fuel. So while we were really unsure, our experience actually came out really better than we would have thought, or if we had had a gas fleet through that.
No, and that's an interesting point too, because that's one of those things that you're not exactly thinking about when you're making the purchase, and you hope never happens, but in certain areas of the country you do have to be aware of how that's going to go if there is some sort of natural disaster or weather event.
Just as an early adopter, you get a lot of the firsts.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't I don't think there'd been a storm like that for anyone to say this is what we do. So we kind of learned along the way. So but I will say it helped us. We would have been in worse shape had we not been able to have the fleet set up the way we did.
Yeah, that's good to know that it worked out in that situation. I did want to ask too. So, how have your drivers responded to the electric vehicles?
Took some time for them to get used to them. Obviously, new technology. They at first we had some people that were a little shy to get into something new, but once they did, they really enjoyed the experience. Quick acceleration, quiet, the same things that our passengers like. You don't have the smell of burning any kind of fuel. So they in turn, after the initial change, have come to really like them. I will tell you, we started moving to electric vehicles early 2022. And if you can think back to that time as we're coming out of COVID, the country was facing shortages for hiring people, if you remember that.
Yeah.
And so we faced the same issues. A lot of people were competing for the employees that were available to work and were coming back to work. And one of the unique things we found was, as we were looking for drivers, that we were competing with, other companies in this segment. They were coming to work for us because they heard or saw these vehicles and they were new and interesting. And because they were the newest technology, it was a recruiting tool for us. The only follow-up I was going to say about the drivers while we were talking about them is the ease of use has been one of the benefits of moving to electric vehicles. We thought the savings were going to come from fuel, from not buying gas. And I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point today. And we do have savings. But while we love our employees, sometimes they get busy, get tied up, and maybe miss some maintenance scheduling or there's an accident. Maybe oil gets put where transmission fluid or vice versa. And there's opportunities for error. And those small maintenance things can turn into really big problems and expensive problems. And one of the real cost savings for us has been, for the most part, all they have to do is plug it in. They don't have to check all these moving parts. They don't have to look at what fluids go where. Pretty simple. They do still require service, but for the day-to-day operations, because these vehicles are going out every day, we still have to maintain tires, and we still have to do safety checks and things like that. But not having all those moving parts has really been a benefit. So for them to be able to come in, the peace of mind, to plug in back in their station, they know where it goes, they're not searching for fuel.
Yeah, and I want to stay on that topic of, you mentioned the savings, and I did want to talk about that because, as much as these types of vehicles have, they have the environmental benefits and all the other things with them, this is a business and it has to make business sense. So how have you found it in terms of, fuel savings and the business side of things?
So fuel savings, we've seen coming out of COVID, fuel hit records. We saw that, right? We looked like geniuses having electric vehicles. Now we're seeing things even out with fuel prices, but still, we are so efficient with our energy use in these vehicles now. These chargers are smart, where they're charging when energy prices are the lowest. Utilities are excited about it. There's incentives from them to move to the EVs and to help with infrastructure costs. And we've had the support of Ford, where they actually had somebody from their team help us to navigate that and how to apply and where to apply, to help offset the costs of, installing these chargers and moving to that. I think we've looked at 1 month, comparing it to, and now it's been years we've had these, but we pulled a month of not having any electric vehicles and compared it when we were buying fuel to the same month the next year where we were charging electric vehicles. And they were charged so efficiently and the right times at night that we were seeing it was less than $60 for the month for one of these vehicles to be on the road versus putting fuel in it. And at that time, fuel was very expensive. Huge savings. There's definitely savings in fuel versus electricity if you're controlling the charging, right? You're making that investment in your business. You believe in this. You're staying organized. You're planning your routes. Now, just like anything, if you need to stop and charge somewhere and you're paying for fast charging from another business, of course there's costs associated with that. But if you're controlling that internally and you've made that commitment to moving to this, the savings are there. It makes sense for us. It's allowed us to grow our transportation piece multiple fold from where we were when we were using fuel versus to where we are today. Do it where people are happy, they're excited, they look forward to their ride. They like when they're getting in, they like when it's quiet, they like that it in this particular case, when you're talking about a shuttle bus, they like that they're not smelling any fumes. They're happy, and that's what we want, right? We're a healthcare business, but we're a customer service business, just like every company, right? You want your customers and your employees to be happy. When you find something as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, you want to share that. So, when you have success, you want to share that with others. So I hope, others will consider it for their business. I would say if you're organized, which small businesses or really any business needs to be, if you're organized, you plan, I think this is a great fit for a lot of businesses. I don't know that it's one size fits all and we're going to change the entire world to EVs overnight. Don't know that that's what we're going to do. But I do think that they make sense in certain applications, and we're one of them. So I appreciate you letting me come on and share our experience.
Yeah, and we want to thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. I think this is a great conversation, so I hope that those watching will take something away from it.